like, is it a conceit for the show to make it even more relevant to Maryland, the broader way, the studio system in general in the 50s, especially for women? I mean, we know from like just observing the world around us that right now you don't have to rise to fame through scandal.
Hmm.
I'm thinking of somebody very different from Marilyn Monroe, but like Beyonce or something, there's many
Yes.
examples of that. But um, Marilyn, it was a different kind. Not only was it a totally different time, but she was a very different type of artist.
Want to listen to this Ivory Tower Boiler Room episode ad free? Head on over to our Patreon, where you will get this episode and all of our episodes ad free. And you can see our video episode, including this one right now, where you'll see my beautiful face and the guest's beautiful face. Who doesn't love that? And I am so excited to announce that all of you can get a 1 week free trial on our Patreon. Join the ITBR professor level and you unlock all of Mary's True Crime and Academia Patreon episodes, our rewatch show, including Queer as Folk and Smash. You can even listen to us dissect Scream and The Exorcist. And I heard, rumor has it, that we have an upcoming Britney Spears episode, a Fall of the House of Usher episode, and yes, even a Saltburn episode, which is going to be quite riveting. So head to patreon.com/Ivory Tower Boiler Room, join the 1 week free trial, and see what you're missing out on. And while you're at it, please follow us on Instagram and TikTok at Ivory Tower Boiler Room. Rate, follow, and subscribe to us on Apple and Spotify podcasts. Thanks so much, and I hope that you enjoy all of our Ivory Tower Boiler Room episodes.
Well, hello everyone. Welcome back to Ivory Tower Boiler Room Rewatches. Today we're discussing Smash Season 1, Episode 5, Let's Be Bad. Today we have again with us the wonderfully talented Elizabeth Winder here, the author of Marilyn in Manhattan.
Yay!
Us this amazing episode. Andrew, do you want to start us off today?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I feel like I should ask Elizabeth to start us off, but no.
Oh,
No,
I
you go
mean,
ahead.
I know though, like I have to say, I think out of all of the episodes, this is my favorite so far because um there's just so much psychological nuance with the Marilyn um personas, the way that we're getting her biography. But yeah, I would just like to ask you both, what do you think of, I have here Elizabeth, can you unpack this? Because there was this whole moment of um they're talking about uh Joe DiMaggio and Marilyn, um what they were going through after the 7 year itch. Like I have written here something about the hotel scene. Does that ring a bell?
Yes, it does. So there's um a couple of things going on. So the 7 year itch was filmed in 1954. A lot happened with Marilyn in 1954 before she made her move to New York City, but it premiered on her birthday in June 1955, and she was in New
Mm.
York at that premiere. She and Joe had broken up by then, but they were still friends, and he was her date, to this premiere. And
Mm.
he there was that's when I think that there was a sort of publicity scene that with the skirt and the dress and the grate and all of that, and he was so upset about that. They went to a hotel room, his hotel room, afterwards, and they had a really big fight. It is possible that there he was physically violent with her that night. It was he was really, really angry. He was jealous. He did not like the implications of all of that. And I think that, clearly a lot of it was this possessiveness. And then part of it was also him thinking, I don't like Marilyn being used that way, but then if that's who you're angry with, be angry with the people who are using her. Don't be angry with her.
Yeah. So wait, Christian, can you remind us again, who is the, Christian's like our smash dictionary, but, who's the what's the name of the actor? Not the actor Will Chase, but what's the name of the character who's playing Joe DiMaggio?
Michael Swift.
Michael.
Swift.
Okay, thank you. So, do you agree that Michael has every right to say to Julia, who's crafting this hotel scene in the musical, don't make me into a villain? Is that something that he should be worried about? Is that Joe DiMaggio is going to be seen as a villain? Or do you think there's every right to portray the actual reality of him being verbally and maybe even physically abusive to her?
That's difficult because everyone has their own allegations of what actually happened in that hotel room. No one can know for sure what exactly happened. I know Blonde portrayed it fully to the extent. I know that in another documentary that I watched, Love Marilyn, that they discussed it a little bit at length. I think they also had Amy as one of the guests who discussed Marilyn as well when she
Amy
was
Green,
alive.
yeah,
Yep.
she was there that night. Did
Yep.
did Amy Green I'm so sorry, that's my dog.
Oh, you're fine, Elizabeth. We
Can I
like
just
dogs here.
You go right
Yeah,
ahead.
go for it.
So I think did Amy Green, I know that she witnessed Joe DiMaggio's anger. I forget if she witnessed any physical violence. I don't think that she would have witnessed any.
I think she said that she was in the room next to her and she might have
Okay.
heard something, but she wasn't gonna disclose in the documentary that I watched that I've seen multiple times. But I think she said that she wasn't going to disclose anything, that she hailed Joe as a god, that she wasn't going to say anything against him that was demeaning against
That's
him.
all coming back to me now. Yes, yes. And to sort of, and I'm sure you're aware of this, Christian, but to sort of emphasize, to think about where Amy Green might be coming from. Not to say that it's fair necessarily, but Amy was really did not like Arthur Miller, and her feelings
I don't either. I
I think
don't.
are very justified. I think he was a hideous creep to Marilyn and abusive in so many ways. And I don't like whataboutism. Do you know what I mean? But so, and I'm not saying this to diminish any, that behavior of Joe DiMaggio's, but there tends to be a focus more on DiMaggio as this problem and Miller as this nice guy.
As this savior type of person. And I don't think that that's really good.
It's not true.
No.
Because in my mind, at least, she was saving herself. She moved to New York with her friend, her supportive friend, Milton Green, who was not using her in any way. He was a friend. And she defied the studio, started her own production company, started studying acting. She did not need to be saved by this man with Miller with a God complex.
And let me ask you, Elizabeth, if I can, I haven't finished Marilyn Manhattan yet, but I wanted to ask you if you knew if Marilyn was very aware of the queer community and how much they supported her, if there was ever, if she knew if that was a thing back then.
That's a really good question. I think that based on some things that I kind of remember reading, I think that she was aware to an extent. The thing is, she was so lonely in Hollywood that she didn't have that many friends. Right. So I think that one of the sad things is that she wasn't really fully aware of how much of the support and the admiration that she might have had from communities like the queer community that respected her and admired her. I think that some of that was lost on her. you know, which is of course sad thinking back on it. She didn't know, she didn't realize that.
Yeah. Is this true? In 1961, she was in an interview with William J. Weatherby, and she said, "People tried to make me into a lesbian. I laughed. No sex is wrong if there's love in it."
Oh,
Sounds familiar with the Weatherby stuff. The context of it, I'm wondering about.
Yeah. I mean, but she also said like she didn't like to put labels on love. Like if people loved, that was beautiful. And that was kind of
Yes,
like Judy Garland's
100%.
approach.
That rings very, very true for Marilyn. She was not
Yeah.
a judgmental person at all. And she was very, it goes with her sort of understanding that like people, human nature is changeable. It's not, it doesn't fit into lines all the time. And she wasn't somebody who felt the need to constantly define things. And, you know, some people have problems with that. And, you know, but she was very, very accepting.
Yeah. Well, and maybe it's kind of like uh yeah, there's actually for everyone out there, there's an article called How Marilyn Monroe Became a Trailblazing Gay Icon from 2021.
we should link that in the show notes.
Yeah, we'll link it in the show notes, but it's by, and of course, we'll link Elizabeth's book, but it's by Debadrita Soar, and it has a quote by Marilyn that says, "We are all born sexual creatures. It's a pity so many people despise and crush this feeling."
Mm.
That's really powerful.
It is.
And yeah. And I think Judy Garland was also accused of being a lesbian. Again, there's nothing wrong with being a lesbian. I just think it's interesting that um
I mean, and
like
Judy knew a
yeah.
lot. I think she went to a lot of gay bars, and she was very advocative of the queer community as well. So she knew, she knew from the get-go that Over the Rainbow was going to be her signature song. And with that, she used that
Mhm.
as she said that this song is for anyone who's feeling unaccepted, who's feeling low, who just needs a support system. And you know, there's a famous line that she says, "I love the thing about the audience, that she wants to bring the audience home, but she can't bring them with her." And I think that's true for Marilyn as well, because she wants to do that with her audience. But I believe that she would have, as we said in episode 4, that she would have thrived on Broadway. And I think with
Mhm.
I feel like if someone would have given her the chance, if there was like a role out there for her, then she would have been a big Broadway star. And that would have saved her as well as the queer community, I believe. Because, you know,
I
I
think so too. Yeah,
Well,
I definitely agree.
and I have to imagine Elizabeth, like when she's doing numbers like Heat Wave or like Marilyn's campy numbers, she was around so many queer men.
yes.
Right. I was
Like,
watching Heat Wave, and then I was also watching well, actually a Jane Russell number from Gentlemen Prefer Blondes.
Oh, yes.
The men in the
That whole,
gym. You
oh
didn't
yeah.
know what I'm talking about. I was watching it last night. I'm thinking, are they naked? But then I was like, no, they're wearing flesh tone shorts.
I thought too. I was like, wait, are they?
Yeah. Wait, isn't it true Jane Russell? I mean, this surprised me. Again, we like have so many different, listeners from different political parties. So, I'm not making a political statement, but I thought Jane Russell was like a diehard Republican
She's,
or conservative.
yes, I think that that she was towards that in the latter part of her life. And I don't even mean when she was elderly. I think like, at some point in adulthood on, maybe in her 30s, she became very conservative, at least in certain ways. I don't know how politically aligned it was. And I think there might have been a religious element.
Okay. And the reason I just bring that up is like that like queer openness that Marilyn and Judy Garland have. It interests me because they're also targeted by McCarthyism. Like
Yes,
that they were accused of being communist, and like the actors and actresses accused of being communist tended to be more open with sexuality.
absolutely. Absolutely. No matter what type, what they were doing, definitely.
Mhm.
I think it also
Yeah.
happened with Lucille Ball too, as well.
Yep. Lucille Ball. Lena Horne is targeted. Again, I think we need this history just taught because yeah.
So
It,
too. I wonder why. I mean, I think that this absolutely should be taught in history classes. This moment in mid-century America, this McCarthyism and its terrifying effect on the arts should 100% be taught.
yeah, yeah. And I would assume, did Arthur Miller, like, even though, yes, I agree too, even though I have to say my mentor and my friend Jan Balakian interviewed him in his Connecticut home, because she's an Arthur Miller scholar. And I always ask her, I'm like, what did you ask about Marilyn? And she's like, he won't say anything.
Oh yeah,
Um, yeah, he did not answer any Marilyn Monroe questions.
sure he wasn't.
But like, did he have a lot of um queer friends? I'm
Miller?
assuming he,
He
yeah.
had to have, because he's a playwright. He works in that industry. I'm sure that he has to have some connection. I think. I'm not sure. Elizabeth, what do you think about that?
I don't know too much about him other than what I, had to learn to write about him in the context of Marilyn. Um, I don't think I think he certainly would have socialized, particularly when he went to Hollywood at times, with aspects of the queer community more so than your average
Mhm.
man, in the 50s. But I don't think that he had many queer friends, or like he first of all, he was pretty solitary, but he didn't run in the circle that, like, for example, like the other big playwright of that time, Tennessee Williams, ran
Yes.
it.
Yeah, yeah,
um
yeah.
those two I do not think were friends at all.
Mm.
um and when you think about Arthur Miller's work, there's something very um
Patriarchal. Are you a fan of LGBTQ plus books, plays, movies, TV shows? Well, then I have the magazine for you. It's called the Gay and Lesbian Review. The GNLR is a bi-monthly magazine of history, culture, and politics that publishes essays in a wide range of disciplines, as well as a slew of reviews of books, plays, and movies. Each issue brings you consistently intelligent, lively, thought-provoking articles focused on a unifying theme, and it brings together the leading minds on the topic. So I just had on Dr. Richard Schneider Jr., the founder and editor-in-chief of the GNLR. For the GNLR's 30th anniversary, happy birthday, GNLR, Dr. Richard Schneider talked about their special volume called Outer Appearances, More Faces from the Annals of the GNLR, illustrations by Charles Heffling. They cover current LGBTQ artists such as Harvey Fierstein, Melissa Etheridge, Alan Cumming, James Whiteside, Alison Bechdel, and even David Sedaris, and of course, many others like Stephen Sondheim. There's even a supplemental issue that comes with your commemorative volume. And Andrew Holleran, the writer of Dancer from the Dance, he reviews a book called Morris about E.M. Forster's Morris, written by one of our ITBR guests, David Grevin. So we can't wait for you all to experience this beautiful 30th anniversary GNLR issue. Have you heard some of my GNLR interviews, including Dr. Andrew Lear's discussion about male-male love in ancient Greek society and Ignacio Darnad opening and blasting the closet door in the queer male art world? Well, definitely make sure you listen to them after this episode. Head to glreview.org. Make sure you subscribe to their magazine. You'll see there's a section that says subscribe at the top. Enter the promo code ITBR50. That's ITBR50 to receive 50% off. 50% off any print or digital subscription. Enjoy your reading. Hi, this is Dr. Andrew Rimby, and I'm really excited to talk to you all about one of our ITBR sponsors, Broadview Press. Broadview Press is an independent academic publisher in the humanities that produces high quality, pedagogically useful books for use in university and college classrooms. They publish mainly in English studies, writing, philosophy, and history. They are always publishing with an eye towards diversity, building a strong list of titles from women, people of color, and authors from other marginalized groups. If you haven't heard my Broadview Press interviews, you need to. Recently, I just had on Dr. Shannon Day, who talked about her book, Beyond the Binary, Thinking About Sex and Gender. And in the summer, I had on Dr. Jason Holt, who gave us all a comprehensive history of what it means to be a philosopher who studies sporting culture. And of course, we went back to ancient Greek, literature, mythology, history to look at the roots of athleticism. And last year, I had on Dr. Jeffrey Andrew Weinstock, who's actually going to be coming on the podcast soon to give his thoughts on the new Fall of the House of Usher Netflix series. He talked all about pop culture for beginners. And Broadview Press is offering an exclusive discount because of our sponsorship. So head to broadviewpress.com where you're going to see such a wide range of literature. Use the code Ivory Tower, IVORYTOWER for 20% off site-wide all of their books. Again, it's broadviewpress.com. Enjoy your reading.
Yes.
I was gonna say all my sons and
Yes, there's something very like patriarchal, straight man about it. And I am a fan of some of his work. I love The Crucible. That's probably the work of his that's the least like that when you think about it. But yeah, All My Sons, Death of a Salesman. This is very much from the straight male perspective, the everyday man perspective. Do you know what I mean? Whereas Tennessee Williams is, well, totally not.
Well, you want to, back to episode 4, you have visions of being Blanche DuBois. I mean, talk about a campy, well, she also goes through her abuse and, that has a Wolves of Hollywood type narrative to it.
It definitely does. Yeah.
For Streetcar.
Yes.
But yeah, I kind of wonder, I know that this isn't in episode 5, but I feel like it's worth addressing, which is what is Marilyn's reason for converting to Judaism? Because that's another thing people don't talk about is she converts to Judaism. Is it really because she marries Arthur, or is it really because she goes on her own quest of religiosity?
I think it's fair to say that it certainly started because of Arthur Miller, but I don't know how religious. I should know more about this. I don't think that. I think Arthur Miller himself was pretty secular. It could have been as simple as her wanting to show respect for his family, his parents, his family. I don't know if I don't have the feeling that she really was on a spiritual journey, but I also think that she was very, very keen to embrace, culturally Jewish tradition and was eager to learn about that, from that aspect.
Yeah. Is Milton and Amy Green, are they Jewish, Elizabeth?
Milton Green, yes.
Milton Green is Jewish.
But,
okay. Yeah. Yeah. I feel like, again, none of these layers were in Blonde, or which is interesting because Joyce Carol Oates is Jewish. So I'm not in the novel. Is Judaism addressed?
I feel like it doesn't appear that much in the novel. It doesn't. It's. I don't think so. I don't think so.
Yeah, just because like Arthur Miller, we're talking about his plays. I feel like a lot of the patriarchal, because I've had these critiques or discussions with my friend who's the scholar, that I feel like Arthur Miller it's a lot of assimilation narrative, because like there's aspects of his Judaism that don't appear in his plays, where like The Crucible is about like McCarthyism and witch hunts, and which is why I actually enjoy The Crucible a lot, is there's a lot of paranoia.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think these are interesting questions. I kind of wish I knew the answer. But I think that with she certainly was embracing like the cultural aspect of Judaism.
Yeah. I don't know. There's so much, but there's so much to her life that
I know.
yeah.
Yeah.
But okay, well, thank you for unpacking. That was all about you unpacking the hotel scene, but we got a lot
Oh, yeah.
here. Oh, I love like where we go with these
Didn't mean
conversations.
to bring Tennessee Williams into the mix. I don't even know
I
how.
mean, hey, he's welcome in any mix. But oh yeah, so like Michael says, I don't want DiMaggio to be a complete tool.
Right. Right. I think
And I'm
that
like,
that's from the character's perspective, from Michael's perspective. I don't fault him
yeah,
for for feeling that way and for expressing that.
yeah. Well, my question is Michael a tool in this episode?
I know what you mean.
Yeah. I mean, who's in the wrong here? Julia or Michael? Like, is someone fueling this, or do you think they're both? I mean, Julia is starting to veer on cheating on her husband by like meeting with Michael at the diner, which is like they're supposed to be talking about his acting process, but then, they share that kiss. I know we're jumping ahead, but like they share that kiss on the front stoop as her son is watching. I mean, that
And
was a really,
they
And then
are.
her son gets picked up by the police for apparently smoking marijuana.
oh
You
yeah,
can't
well,
Oh,
that was just
and then the
foolish.
date, the guy's lawyer date shows up at the police station and is
And then
like,
he
Yeah,
says this isn't CSI. I'm like, it's SVU. It's not CSI.
that's true. Yeah, well, the
Have
whole,
Julia and
yeah,
Michael hooked up at all before episode 4? Because when I saw them, I thought something has happened between these two.
Hmm.
I
yeah.
guess.
So did they, were they, yeah, so they had a sexual relationship.
They did. That was in their other show because she confessed to Tom that
Yes.
both of them had an affair a couple of years, like I think it was 3 years ago or something, that they had an affair, that they were walking on
So
the
they
bridge.
had,
They were just reminiscing over old times and they just, it was a big mess. And now I don't know what's gonna happen. I don't know. I don't want to spoil anything for anybody, but
It seems like
it
something is
gets
going to
messy.
happen between those
something
two.
is going to happen. Oh yeah, and the husband knows about this affair, Elizabeth. Like you haven't seen the husband in this episode, but he knows that they were
Yep.
fooling around before, but he doesn't know that like this actor is on the Maryland production, right, Christian?
And
I don't
working
think
with
so
them.
until it isn't until the the workshop that he figures it all out. I think that's in my mind. That's in my own perspective.
Is Julia's marriage like, is it a loving marriage or is it a marriage of convenience? It's a real marriage, or maybe,
It's
or
a real match. I mean, they're trying to get an adoption, and it's been a rocky road. And now with Leo's her son's supposed, well, alleged arrest, it's like that makes everything be a lot more strenuous on Julia and her husband's part for the adoption process. So it's
oh, right, right.
Well, how about the whole marijuana? I don't know. It was just that to me felt
and
very
then
dated.
Tom's like
And like
musical and like, I love that scene.
yeah,
Like
like he
when
starts singing a musical number to the sun. That was yeah, it was very campy, but I'm
I
like,
loved it. I
really?
loved
He's
every
getting
minute.
arrested over his friend smoking marijuana? I'm like, this is
I
Like
mean,
this
I know it was a few years ago. When was this film? Like 2015 or early?
2012.
Okay. So was that, maybe that was the on the cusp of, I mean, it still seems late in the day to be for that to happen. But it
yeah.
was 11 years ago.
Yeah. And for like him to be in Manhattan and like this is what the cops are worried about.
That's what didn't, even if
Really?
things aren't officially legal, it doesn't make any sense that that would be, it's not like a college campus in Illinois or something. I don't know.
They
But
were
I
in
feel like they needed
Central
him.
Park. I think they were in a park. I think it was either Central Park or another park, and they were just sitting there, and the friend just whips out his, cigarette or something, bong,
Yeah.
whatever the
I
frick
was
it
gonna
is.
say you just have to go to Union Square and I
Yes,
see there's
there's
way more than marijuana. But
yep, way more.
uh
I mean, it did seem a little bit like a plot device,
yeah, they were trying to escalate this
Yeah.
conflict. Um But oh yeah. Okay, can we just say I'm getting really frustrated with Dev, Karen's boyfriend. Like, I can't deal with this
Oh.
anymore. And like his dinner, and she's seated by the plane. I'm
She's
like,
seated like in like if there was an area in the restaurant, she would be by the kitchen area where they would take her,
I
you
would
know.
have left that dinner. Like,
That was awful.
It was so embarrassing for her. And I'm like, oh boy, she's having to use this dress as a sort of
yep,
Marilyn tool, I think. She kind of had to
yep.
tap into Marilyn about it. And the Mr. Press Secretary had to take it to his own advantage. I'm like, that's not good.
Yeah. He wasn't even like roundabout with his flirtation. He's like, do you want to go
Creepy,
back to my place or my
creepy.
hotel? Yeah, my place. I'm like, whoa, okay.
Hotel and order room service. Like, no.
Why is Dev like this? Like why is
Yeah.
why is he
And then his the journalist from New York Times or something like that, like he thought that
Yeah.
uh Karen thought that she was that RJ was a man instead of a
Oh
woman.
yeah.
right. I remember saying that when she's like shocked.
Well, because he's never been open with her about the gender of the person. And well, again, I feel like this is paralleling Marilyn's life. Is Dev is kind of like our almost like hiding the truth from her.
Yes,
Um, starts to gaslight her, like, oh, what's the big deal about her being a woman?
right. And then you can see it's very easy to see this happening in Karen's mind, kind of like, okay, well, what is the big deal? My boyfriend's working with a woman. That is not a big deal. That shouldn't be a big deal. And he recognizes that and uses that to kind of make her doubt herself in the future.
Yeah. Oh, I can't. Yeah, she needs to leave him. I'm done. I can't
I
deal
don't
with
think she's
him
going to leave
anymore.
for a
No,
while.
I love his accent. It's like, no, it's not good for you. It's not.
What I think might happen is I think that Deb's behavior might drive Karen into Derek's arms.
Mm, that's true. We might be leading in that direction, Elizabeth. Some foreshadowing here.
That's my prediction.
You might have to come back later if that happens. Well, I already said Elizabeth has to come back for the beginning of season 2 because that's the cut print moving on when Marilyn creates her production company.
Oh, yes. I will
Yes.
And
definitely
that's my
will.
favorite musical number, but I do like
Same.
this musical number
I have
too.
so many.
But yeah. Um, oh, Ellis is feeding Eileen information. I thought this was really
And
interesting that like Ellis is a personal assistant, Elizabeth, but he's like feeding the producer all the information about, oh, Julia hasn't finished this musical number, but I know Tom did this. And then like, do you want to hear more from me? Like, and I'm thinking, doesn't Eileen like have boundaries in the office? She's
Right,
like, no, tell me everything.
right. I was kind of surprised by that. And I thought like on both behalfs, because I thought like, whenever, because I feel like I've seen this in shows before where there's like a bunch of people working on something. I'm thinking of the example I'm thinking of is the show Unreal from a few years ago. But when somebody kind of bypasses the, you know what I mean, the person that they should be working for and go to the head person to sort of tattle, I feel like it never turns out well.
No, it doesn't turn out for the like person lower on the totem pole.
No, it doesn't. It doesn't because then
No, they're just done.
yeah, because it's somebody you can't trust at all.
Mm-mm. Yeah, so he's like a mole. And
Yeah, I don't like
yeah,
that.
no. Oh, so how about the vibrato issue with Ivy and her? Oh my, so this is the manipulation and gaslighting with Derek. I this is where I really felt for Ivy. Like I didn't really feel for her as much in the last episode, but I
I'm starting to
felt
feel
her
for her
pain.
more. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So like what's going on there with Derek embarrassing Ivy and saying, oh Karen, you're going to do voice lessons with Ivy.
That was sick. That was
And
that was
that, but he also manipulated Karen into singing happy birthday. And he's like, I know you've done it before. You can do it again. Like that was top sheer manipulation.
That was
And I
like
felt
that
for
was
both Karen and Ivy at that
that was
moment.
so calculating and so thought out with such precision. If I move this chess piece here, then and say this, then this chess piece goes here, and then these two are doing this. That was frightening.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh my God. It was, but you're right, Christian. Like he's even outing that there was this flirtation where she, like for her audition, had to sing happy birthday to him in his hotel room. This is like early. Like, is this episode 1 when she does that, Christian?
He invites her to his house in the
Yeah.
city, and he wants her to do like a, I think it was in the first episode, if I'm not mistaken.
But he says that in front of Ivy.
In front of everyone.
In front of
Ivy to know. He wants Ivy to know to get into her head.
That's where he
Like-
sees that doubt of self-doubt.
Mhm.
And I think
Exactly.
we see
I
that.
can be replaced. I can be replaced on the stage, and then that's tied to me being replaced in that bedroom where
Yep.
you know, with this man.
Where like Karen and Ivy should be uniting together because against this manipulative tool of a guy, but like instead he's really finding their weaknesses.
He's doing everything he can to make sure they don't unite. You know, I think that he's doing this definitely on purpose, because he is not in power if the two of them have a unified front. He knows that.
But yeah, so that was very troubling. And you can tell, I do have to say though, Karen seems very sympathetic to Ivy. Do you think, or do you think she enjoys knowing that she might have a chance to usurp Ivy?
No, I think she understands what she's going through, but then Ivy at this point in her life, she's trying to figure out what she wants to do. And here's a man telling her that she isn't doing the best work that she can. And it's getting her into this self-doubt mode. And she's starting to self-analyze her own work. And she's trying to, I guess, she's trying to emulate what she wants to bring to the craft. And with Karen trying to help her, it's kind of, with Karen, she's trying to help, but maybe Ivy might see it as self-sabotaging or sabotaging in a way. And it's just, oh, sorry, you guys were frozen for a second. I just lost my train of
Oh, yeah, no, we're here. No, we're self-sabotaging you, Christian. I'm just kidding. No.
Do you think that there's not an element within Karen of being glad that this attention is being get to her, because that's
yes and no.
totally immune to that, liking having some power, not because it hurts Ivy, not because of that, but because she's gaining more power.
I mean, if you look at it from the fact that Derek forced her to perform that song in front of everyone, it made her feel a little bit debilitated, and she wasn't sure where she stood. And they kind of
But I think when she sees how the applause that she gets for like giving that performance of like, oh wow, she really embodies Marilyn's essence.
Yeah.
She's like getting those pats on the back, and then sees that she isn't the chorus girl.
That's got to do something for her. That's got to get the wheels in the head to start turning. I mean, I feel like that would only be human, you know?
But I think Ivy's performance in their vocal lesson, like when she's like, well, I have some advice for you. It's like the bitch slap moment. Like,
I love that. I actually love that.
She's like, oh, don't get ahead of yourself. And then when like the vocal, when the what would it be? Music director, I guess, comes in to give the lesson. He's like, hey, Larry, it's just this whole performance she puts on. I mean, I'm annoyed at both of them for different reasons, because I feel like they both are getting under each other's skin.
Yes. Yeah.
But I really blame Derek. Like, it's not on
It's
them.
Jared, yeah. And in that
It's
scene that you're
him.
talking about, I'm loving watching Ivy doing what she's doing. So it's interesting because I do have sympathy for Ivy 100%.
Mm.
Like I get it's how can you not? It's maybe not in the beginning of episode 4, but by this episode, it's very easy to sympathize with her, I think.
Yeah. Well, I guess we should just go into Let's Be Bad then, which is what I released on social media. Like, um, I released the number, everyone out there, so you can see it on TikTok, Instagram, but I need to hear from Elizabeth, your view, Christian, when she keeps forgetting like the number, and then she has that whole moment. They're like, "Oh, just take 5, or like, you know, you can have the afternoon off." And she's like, "No, no, I got this." And then she breaks down and cries, and she says, "Okay, I'm ready now." Like, what is happening psychologically to her? Hi, this is Dr. Andrew Rimby, and when I'm not here on the podcast, I am consulting with small businesses, undergraduate students, graduate students, podcasters, and those in media. So, if you're curious about the work that I've done with my consultation services, you could just type me in on Google, Ivory Tower Boiler Room, and you'll see a few reviews pop up. I've worked on college admission essays for undergraduate students. I've revamped and expanded a small business's social media marketing campaign right here in Port Jefferson, New York. And I've also worked on a graduate student's thesis for her physician assistant program. So if you want to seek me out or inquire about my consultation services, just email me. That's the easiest way to reach me at ivorytowerboilerroom@gmail.com. That's easy to remember. And 'tis the season for college admission essays, both undergraduate and graduate, thesis writing, dissertation writing. Do you want to create a podcast and you don't know where to begin? Media work, um, how to open a TikTok, how to start creating videos on TikTok, what to do with your Instagram. All of that I have done. So just reach out to me. The holiday season may be behind us, but guess what's lurking around the corner? Picture that little baby with a bow and arrow. Yes, Valentine's Day is almost here, and I'm thinking of what gift can I get that my boyfriend will absolutely love and gush over. Well, he is a horror movie fanatic, so I think I have just the thing that he'll die for. Pun intended. My good friend Mandy Bangle is the owner of Mandy Made It, a craft company where she specializes in crochet and pre-cut handmade gifts. So whether your partner is a horror movie fanatic, I'm sure that they have a TV show they love. Maybe there's a book that they love, a music artist, a sports team that they cheer for. Mandy has you covered. From shirts, hats, beanie hats, which I love to wear at the gym, car decals, beer and coffee koozies, keychains, stuffed animals, signs that you want to put all over your apartment. She is ready to create any customized order. So head to Instagram right now, type in at Mandy Made It. That's MANDEE Made It. Slide into her DMs, and she is ready to start working on your order. Just send her a few ideas. You could say, "Hey, my boyfriend really loves horror movies." Or, "Hey, my boyfriend really loves the Broadway musical, Wicked." I'm sure she will figure out some concoction for you, and say that you heard her ad on the Ivory Tower Boiler Room, because she's going to give you an exclusive ITBR free gift. She's also working on a new line of ITBR merchandise, so I can't wait to share all of that information with you. Make sure you mention at Ivory Tower Boiler Room when your gift arrives from Mandy so I can share it out on our Instagram. I hope you all enjoy your gifts.
I really liked that because I think that that was, and I of course love when it's, we're seeing real moments in Marilyn, repeated moments that happened to Marilyn Monroe in the show with the characters. I think it's very, like, I keep going back to this, but the tremendous amount of pressure that Marilyn was under when she did these films was, I mean, you can't overstate it. And it might, this specific, more interpersonal pressure that Ivy's under is a little bit different, but it's still crushing somebody until they snap, kind of, until they break. Marilyn, in almost every film that there was a lot of, I need a minute, I forgot my line, I need a minute, for 1,000 different reasons. One reason, and this is a very basic, prosaic reason, but it's a big one, is that she was, and this means something to me because I struggle with this, she was so sleep deprived. She had such bad chronic insomnia. So when people talk about Marilyn forgetting her lines, if you've ever spent time with chronic insomnia, you know that you just can't remember things, kind of. So in Marilyn's case, a lot of the time it was that. But then also, like the situation here with Ivy, there is that interpersonal pressure too that was happening.
Yeah. So Christian, what is your take on her needing that moment to like process her breakdown?
Oh, I loved it. It was just so powerful to see on screen because you could see Megan the actress, and you could see Ivy the character in both instances. And that second time when she turned around, you could see that single little tear just coming down. And it's just so powerful how amazing Megan can be in this role. And it's just, it shows to us how Ivy is in this workshop of a show, and how she's trying to be perfect and be Marilyn and be herself and do all these different things and be a circus performer for so many people. And it's just, it just took its toll in that little millisecond, and she was able to just snap back and just say, nope, we're going to do it, and we're going to do it right.
You can see that, I'm glad that you described it that way, because you can really see with the character, it's not just important to her to be like a star. She cares about her art.
Yes.
She is like Marilyn, a perfectionist when it comes to her art and her work. And she also wants to do a great job, not just so she keeps the role, but because it matters to her, just for its own sake. And I really like seeing that.
Yeah. So what did you think, Elizabeth, of when I love when they do the number and then imagine it for us on the stage, like the way it would look. So what did you think of the whole, it felt very realistic, even though we're getting such a heightened musical number of like, oh, why don't you fire her? And like, I don't know who the woman is, but she's like, oh, you can't fire Miss Monroe.
I love that. I love that. It almost seemed kind of like a dream sequence in a way. And it was really cool because it was kind of playing with time in some ways. You know what I mean? Like, is Ivy Marilyn, like she's sort of, there's a sense of like embodying Marilyn on some level with that, like that fully immersing yourself in a role to the point where that you actually gain power because of it.
Yeah. And is this historically accurate with Some Like It Hot, the set?
Oh, right. Some Like It Hot. So that the filming of Some Like It Hot was a few years after my expertise, but I do know that filming that was very, very difficult. Marilyn was really struggling with it. Tony Curtis was a total jackass the whole time. Billy Wilder was being a jerk as well. Jack Lemmon was being really lovely, at least. But there were times where I think that there were at least, I think that Tony Curtis wanted her off, and but they couldn't because she was the name. And there's definitely an element of truth there.
Yeah. Well, and the way that Arthur Miller is shown in this number, I thought was fascinating because instead of being supportive, he's like more pills, like just
Oh,
questioning every action she's doing. And I'm
well,
like,
that's very accurate to what would have
yeah.
been happening in their relationship at that point. Some Like
Mm,
It Hot, even the filming of it was happening towards the end of their relationship, not at the bitter end, but like any long-term relationship, usually takes a while to disintegrate. This was in a time where they were not very well connected at all. She had multiple miscarriages and health issues, so she was taking pills for pain, and she sensed that Marilyn was a very, I mean, both of you really understand this well, I'm sure. Marilyn was such a sensitive, empathetic person. The type, I don't really know what you call this quality. Maybe it's not empathy, but it's the type of quality where you know you are very much picking up on what somebody else is thinking and feeling. And if it's
yeah.
your partner and they're drawing away from you and or looking at you with some sort of judgment or disdain, you know it, you can tell. It made so she that made her take even more pills, sleeping pills, painkillers. It was very sad for her. She felt very much abandoned by him, and feeling a lack of support in terms of her career. Thanks to Arthur, she didn't have Milton Green anymore. So there's a difficult and lonely time.
Yeah. Yeah, she is like that makes sense. Marilyn is an intuitive person, and
100%. Yeah.
it's kind of like Pygmalion, like where Pygmalion, right? The myth creates like that sculpture, like in the image of what a woman would be. And I feel like Marilyn in Let's Be Bad, we really see her playing into what I love about this number is it's about the artifice of like her knowing what the capitalist Hollywood system wants from her, and she's going to give it to them. But she also has her own demands. Like knows she knows that they need her name, like you said,
Yes.
Elizabeth, and she's
Yes.
going to hold out on them because she knows she's not being treated with respect.
Right. Right. And sadly, at least with Marilyn, that was met with a lot of backlash and resistance. A lot, and a big part of that was because she's a woman.
Mhm. And like, what did you think of how she's being treated as a puppet in this number? It's like they're literally as if she's in the gladiator ring. They're like pulling her limbs. It was
That made a lot. I think that was like that was kind of painful to watch in a lot of ways. And I thought it was a wonderful artistic sort of like dance interpretation of what was going on in her life at that time with career wise and with when she was kind of back in the studio system at that point. Um, that's what it was like. There's that tension between the knowing I do have some power, you do need my name for this, and then feeling completely overwhelmed and pulled and and not supported.
yeah. Well, it's like where's her advocates? That's
Nowhere.
I was like, where's her publicist? Where's her press agent? Where's the manager?
She was very much without real advocates at that point in her life.
Yeah. Because I think she thinks Arthur Miller's her advocate, but he's not her advocate in this scene.
No.
Oh my God. Yeah. But it did remind me of Chicago, the musical, with like Roxy Hart and We Both Reach for the Gun. I don't know if you know that
I've
musical,
never
Elizabeth.
seen Chicago, actually.
Yeah. But there's like this whole like mannequins or Christian, that like um her like being pulled in directions with her lawyer. I was like, oh. Um, but I thought it was such a well done musical number.
Being pulled in directions is really such a great interpretation of what Marilyn went through at many times in her career, like with Arthur Miller and saying, you've got to end this relationship with Milton Green, with this friendship. She felt
Mm,
so cold, earlier in the 50s. DiMaggio versus the studio says it was
mm.
she always seemed to be being torn in different directions with very few people in her life gave her the space to assert what she wanted personally.
Yeah. And isn't that kind of what the women are going through in this episode? Like Julia is in this pressure of adoption, right? And Marilyn at this moment with Let's Be Bad like you said, had a lot of miscarriages and wanted a child, but it just was not happening. And then like Ivy is faced with the manipulation of Derek, and then Karen's faced with Dev's manipulation, and she like knows that she should be the trophy wife, so then she's going to play it up with the press secretary. Like it's so, that's what I love about the series, is they're so good at matching Marilyn's life to the musical number with every character and their
Yes,
plot
not
points.
just the one. You're right. We see, and I like the theme of this sort of happening. I like when TV shows do this. When like, and you gave a great example of like the women in the female characters are all under like kind of painful pressure. You know, you can feel it sort of it watching it, and you see all of them in different kinds of pressure. I really like that. It was kind of moving.
Yeah. Wait, and then is that when This Is a Man's World? That's what Karen is singing, right? After um yeah, where is she singing This Is a Man's World?
In her apartment, she's getting ready for the dinner.
Yes, yes. And she says like, "Hey, I'm Ivy." And then she starts to like play act as if she's Ivy. That was an interesting moment.
I like
Like,
that.
yeah.
What do
It's
you
like,
think it meant? I mean, what do you think she was thinking, or what do you think?
yeah.
I think because her fiance wanted her to put on this performance so that she had to pretend to be somebody else for the night. So she's like, who's the first person that she thought of? It's Ivy.
Performing that type of
Voluptuous,
trophy wife,
sexual,
like
like
pinup
sensuous.
femininity,
Mhm.
sort of.
Yep.
She's the siren. Like she's
Yep.
our
The
femme
siren.
fatale.
There you go.
Yeah.
That's the archetype, the siren, the femme fatale, right? Because that would be for those of us who don't walk around like that, it would have to perform it when you have to slip into that role, you know?
Yeah. But what's so interesting is she thinks Ivy's performing it, but Ivy's faking it. Just like Marilyn was faking this type of like a woman is not a femme fatale without the pressure of men, like them thinking they need, or do you think, well, that's a question, Elizabeth. Do you think Marilyn actually enjoyed and I think that maybe that's what makes Marilyn so complex, is almost like an Oedipus. There's the Sphinx and the riddle. It's like, was Marilyn ever actually happy to be that bombshell? Like, was she ever content that she was causing men such a sensation?
Yes. And it's complicated.
Yeah.
I think that I oh my gosh, I could write like a whole big long dissertation on this. I feel like what a can of worms, but um certain aspects of that, yes, she loved 100%. She was very comfortable with, she loved getting like, hey Marilyn, like wolf whistles on the street. I mean, like respectful ones,
Mhm. Yeah.
not vile, vulgar ones. She was very, very comfortable with attention from fans. She didn't like being stuffed into certain dresses or this or that. I mean, on her own time, she was wearing just loose cotton sundresses and leotards and men's shirts, so on her own time, she didn't really wear that much makeup. She loved perfume though. So there was, a lot of juxtaposition there. She had a very seductive way about her naturally, but not necessarily in the siren way. There is in a softer kind of more kittenish way, kind of like a shy little alley kitten.
Yeah. Maybe this is your next work, Elizabeth. Yeah, no, no. Is Marilyn a femme fatale? You're right. That's a dissertation. Um, but I feel like, oh my God, I have written in capital letters toxic with exclamation marks when I said, oh, when Ivy's banging down Derek's door. That was really troubling.
Yes. Yes. That was another, like, oh my God, hard to watch, but really human, I think.
Yeah. And what did you both think when he says, "Are you staying?" I'm like, this is, I was like, he is fucked up. Like, he is, This is messed up. What
Well,
he's
he
doing
got
to her.
exactly what he wanted there. He wants to so insecurity, desperation, paranoia. He sees her there and he's thinking this is exactly, it's all going exactly to my plan, you know.
So awful. Yeah, and that she needs his validation. That's where I'm just so upset for her to be in this situation.
Right, right.
Like she doesn't see her worth. And that's
Do you
ugh,
think that she's on some level, and I think that she is on some level, there's an aspect of her genuinely being on a little bit romantically interested in Derek, right?
oh
I think
yeah.
there has to be something there. I don't think it's this big love thing, but that complicates the if it just being a power dynamic, right? That certainly must be there to add to her vulnerability, I think.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I think she thinks that they can actually have a long-term relationship.
I think she might too.
And he definitely just sees her as a fling who he's controlling.
Right, right. Well, he has no business having a relationship with anyone, but
No. Well, he basically says to her, the musical is my relationship, which I feel like that's a huge red flag.
that's the type of thing where I would like. I mean, it's not a. At least he's putting that red flag up there.
Honest, that's true. That's true. Yeah. I mean, is he saying anything like, is he giving her any false hope? Like, or is he being honest? Like, I don't see a relationship with you. Like, we're just having a fling and that's all it is.
I don't think he's giving her false hope, but I think that he's manipulating and things and moving the chess pieces around to the point where he is creating a psychological environment to make her very dependent and obsessed with him rather than saying, oh, we'll be together someday. He doesn't say that. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. What do you think, Christian? Like, how is this episode ending for us with Derek and this manipulative behavior?
I don't know. I think it mirrors Marilyn in her own way.
Mhm.
Because I'm not sure
Yeah.
if you guys have either seen this TV movie, mini Lifetime series, based on one of the biographies, The Secret Lives of Marilyn Monroe, with
Yes. And it has
there's
different actors reading the quotes and stuff.
yep.
Yeah, I love that one.
And there's this one dynamic where she's having this relationship with this older gentleman, and she only uses him for like publicity gains, and like she goes with him to parties, and he introduces her to different movie executives and
Johnny
different
High. Yeah.
actors. And
Oh.
that's kind of what it reminds me of with Derek, that's the Powerball that he's playing with Ivy.
That's
Mm,
interesting. I hadn't thought of that. Yeah.
yeah. Well, I know, like, you've spent a lot of time with us, Elizabeth, but if I can, I just have one question. I mean, I have many questions for you, but one question on my mind is, and I'm sure it's not anything like, you know, the owners. I would never ask anyone. I don't think any of us have the like affirmative answer, but like in your own opinion, do you think not just with Marilyn, but someone who rises to like the spectacle of the public's thirst for a celebrity image, do you feel like scandal is imminent in someone's rise to fame? Like they either have to A, go about it the Ivy way and like sleep with the director, or because I feel like we're kind of being given this pathway of in order to like become a public spectacle, you have to do something illicit.
I see what you mean. Like, is it a conceit for the show to make it even more relevant to Maryland, the broader way, the studio system in general in the 50s, especially for women? I mean, we know from like just observing the world around us that right now you don't have to rise to fame through scandal.
Mhm.
I'm thinking of somebody very different from Marilyn Monroe, but like Beyonce or something. There's many
Yes.
examples of that. But um, Marilyn, it was a different kind. Not only was it a totally different time, but she was a very different type of artist.
I am here in Port Jefferson, New York, on Long Island, in one of my favorite stores. It is the Soapbox NY, a bath and body boutique. I'm here with one of the co-owners, Janine. Hi, Janine.
Hi, Andrew. How are you? Thank you.
Good. So I know you have many winter scents to walk us through. So let's
Yes.
get started.
This is from company Michelle Design Works, another one of our favorites. Room spray that you can use any room in your house, just kind of freshens up the room a bit.
Then what is this by Michelle Design
Also by
Works?
Michelle Design Works is Winter Blooms, one of their new scents this holiday season. It's great. It's a hand wash. You can use it in your kitchen or your bathroom.
And then here's something to follow it up with.
Exactly. It's a hand and body lotion.
And then what is this beautiful decorative candle here?
One of our favorites that we actually sell
Mhm.
all year round because it's so popular. This is the scent of Fraser Fir by Times.
I think I'm becoming addicted to it.
Yes, I think you are because you already own one, I believe.
I own one, and it is a decorative candle for me because I'm about to open it, but it's just in such
I know the
a
packaging
beautiful
is, I don't know what's better,
package.
the packaging or the scent,
I'm
but
using
it's
it as a
wonderful.
holiday decoration. So I'll
Well,
get to the candle eventually,
yes, you
everyone.
will. But it's wonderful because with Times and their Fraser Fir, not only do they carry the candles, but they also make it in the scents in the diffuser, in soap, the hand lotion, the hand soap. It's just a great line and a great scent.
So, Janine, how can everyone out there get their hands on your hand and body and even pajama products?
Well, we'd be more than happy to see you in our shop. We're located at 18 Chandler Square in Port Jefferson Village. You could always call us to place an order. We're happy to ship to you. Our phone number is 631-509-1424. You can place an order on our website, soapboxny.com. And you could also find us on Instagram or TikTok at the Soapbox NY.
So many options.
Mhm.
I can't wait for all of you out there to just enjoy what I love so much about the Soapbox NY. So, with that,
Thank you so much.
happy winter, everyone. LGBT stories are universal, but each one speaks to the individual heart and soul of the writer telling it. Do you have a story to tell? Or have you been moved by an LGBT book, film, painting, television show, or other form of media? Then the Gay and Lesbian Review wants to hear from you. The GNLR believes in bringing awareness to queer art and artists through reviews, commentary, and thought pieces in which the author relates their personal lives to a particular piece of art, a novel, a movie. In addition to the print magazine, the GNLR also publishes articles on its blog. So you can see all of this on glreview.org. That's glreview.org. Remember, you get 50% off your subscription of the GL Review magazine when you use the promo code ITBR50. That's 50% off your print or digital subscription when you use promo code ITBR50. To learn more about submitting an article for the GNLR, visit their writer's guidelines. The link is located at the bottom of their homepage. And if you have any questions, email Stephen Hemrick. That's STEPHEN dot HEMRICK at glreview.org. The GNLR and its readers can't wait to see what you have to say. Imagine that you're riding the Turner Classic Movie Great Movie Ride in Hollywood studios. It's in the 1990s. As you're journeying through the Great Movie Ride, you pass the Wizard of Oz, where all of a sudden you see the Wicked Witch of the West ascend into Munchkinland in a cloud of smoke and flames. Well, that's the memory I have with the Great Movie Ride in classic cinema when I was at Disney in the 1990s as a young boy. And ever since that, I was hooked on classic cinema. Well, my friend Christian Garcia, friend of the Ivory Tower Boiler Room, has a podcast that you all are going to love. It's called That Old Gay Classic Cinema, and he looks at queer themes in classic cinema like Vertigo, The Wizard of Oz, Sleeping Beauty, Mary Poppins, 101 Dalmatians, Hello Dolly. The list can go on and on and on. So follow him on Instagram at That Old Gay Classic Cinema. You can listen to his podcast on Apple and Spotify. And he also is on the premiere episode of our Queer as Folk podcast, where I'm rewatching every episode of Queer as Folk from 2000. and the episodes come out bi-weekly. So make sure you listen to his episode with me. And he's launching a rewatch show of Smash, where they're putting on a Marilyn Monroe musical. So he's going to be joined by co-hosts, a lot who are in the Broadway and theater industry, and I'm going to be on his first episode. So without further ado, get listening to That Old Gay Classic Cinema. Enjoy. But like, what do you think of, say, someone I've heard brought up with Marilyn and like her unfortunate, like the downfall and like what happens with Marilyn is a Britney Spears. And I mean, I feel like very different circumstances, but
Yeah, but
I
there's
do feel
similar
like, yeah,
there's similarities. There are exploiting the mental, well, not mental illness, but do you know
yeah,
what I mean? Like the whole hideous tradition of locking women up
yep.
because you don't like what they're saying.
Mhm.
You know, in this case, not physically locking somebody up, but or discrediting them, you know, leaning into a narrative of, you know, she's mentally unwell, she's taking pills. There are a lot of similarities there.
Yeah. And I even feel like Paris Hilton, you know, but Paris Hilton had what Marilyn didn't, which is a family name.
And a tremendous amount of wealth and
Well,
yes.
yeah. Yeah.
Yes, but right, I know also what you're saying there, because when Paris has spoken about really serious things, she is still discredited a lot of the time.
Yeah. And she's even been in Washington, D.C. I mean, in your backyard, Elizabeth, like advocating for laws. And
Oh wow, I didn't realize that. Well, good for
mm,
her.
yeah. And I feel like Marilyn did a lot of political advocacy, and people
He
don't
did.
talk about that.
He did. I mean, right. Ella Fitzgerald, that's the one that I love the most. But then also, well, you know, that is backing Arthur Miller when he was
Mhm.
called to testify. The HUAC, I always forget what it stands for, but the House of Un-American,
Oh, yeah.
it's the
The
McCarthy
committee,
stuff.
the committee. Yeah.
Yes, the
Yeah.
committee. And you know, there's so many other things too. Like she had a lot of causes that she supported.
Yeah. And it's like, I feel that, I guess like my whole feel like you're helping me and Christian, like when we return to episode 6, I feel like we're kind of being primed right now for, um, do you need scandal to rise to the top? But my question is also, if you rise to the top because of scandal, or because like you're seen as the bombshell or the sex goddess, where's your intellectual agency? Like,
Right.
can you rise to the top for being a sex goddess, but also be seen as intellectual and brainy?
That's a problem. I mean, I think that you would have certainly problems being seen as intellectual and brainy. It's getting easier now.
Mhm.
But you know, there until very recently, I think it was really hard, especially for women. I mean, even in acceptable, I'm talking about more like the 90s enclaves, women were calling each other bimbos, and it was
Oh,
okay
yeah.
to call a woman that just because you didn't like her. You know, it was terrible.
Well, like, look at Monica Lewinsky. That
I was thinking
was,
that's actually exactly what I was thinking about.
yeah. But now Monica Lewinsky has had such a public voice. And well, this is
Yes,
where podcasts, what we're on right now, is so good for getting their voices out there, and
yes,
documentaries, like being in control of your content, which Paris Hilton knows the game. Like,
he definitely does. Definitely does. It's interesting in Monica Lewinsky example because I've, you know, as being a teenager in the 90s, I have seen things change quite a lot. You
mm,
know, from like she's a great example of that.
yeah. Wow. I feel like this episode gave a lot of food. Uh,
Thank
yeah.
you for turning me on to this show. I want to watch the other episodes now. I'm like, oh my
Right, you
God.
have to like keep, yeah, you have to like keep going with us. Like, not you know, you're invited anytime, but Elizabeth, I feel like I'd love for you to just keep watching and
I
hearing
definitely am.
my
I like,
thoughts. Yeah.
and the thing is, I truthfully would not have started watching the show had it not been for the podcast, because I didn't think it was going to appeal to me nearly as much as it does. But I love it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And I feel like because of the musical spectacle, it sucks you in, but there's so much um because it's like Marilyn is at the heart, but she's not, evoked in every scene. It like allows for us to understand Marilyn's
Yeah,
story in a more multi-layered way.
right. And she's sort of evoked, I think, subtly through different characters at different times, or
Mm,
situations maybe that she's been in. It makes you think, it certainly makes you think about her life, about Hollywood through the years.
yeah, yeah. So Christian, anything else we should, how would you like to uh, bookmark us?
Goodness, there's so many things I could say, but this episode, Elizabeth, I wanted to say thank you again for being available to us and being so open to just discuss with us and share your view on Marilyn. And I loved every aspect. I cannot wait to discuss with you more. Hopefully, we can have a great relationship.
I would love that. This was so much fun. It was such a delight for me to talk about this. I'm really excited about it.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, and Christian, if you ever, not to pressure Elizabeth, but if you ever like do a Marilyn, which I don't think you've done a Marilyn film
Not
yet
yet, no, but that is on our list. We have
on
her.
his That Old Gay Classic Cinema podcast.
I would
That
love
would-
to. I would love to like show up and
yeah,
talk
bring
about
Elizabeth on. That would be
I
so.
will.
I want to listen to
If,
that.
if it's, I will. We'll talk after the show, so we can.
it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And like we said, Elizabeth, anytime, you are welcome back to this. And I would love your thoughts when like, as you're watching and um we get more of Marilyn's um like her public image and there's like more numbers around
Yes, I can't wait
um
to see some of
how
that.
she plays the press. I think it's so fascinating.
Yes, yes,
Um
I wrote up a lot about that in my book. It's really fun for me to immerse myself in Marilyn again, because after 5 years of writing about the Rolling Stones, and which feels like a very different time. That it's really fun for me to just connect with her.
yeah. Well, maybe there's a Hollywood book in your future. I don't know. We'll see what Elizabeth's working on. Okay, well, oh, how can everyone follow you, Elizabeth, on social media?
Instagram, yes.
Yeah, yeah. I think it's at ELIZAJW.
Let's see.
What does it say?
Yes, that's it.
Is it okay? I've been tagging Elizabeth a lot. That's why. But we have the links for Elizabeth's information. Get your hands on Marilyn in Manhattan, Parachute Women if you're a Rolling Stones fan, learning about the women behind the Rolling Stones success. Sylvia Plath. Elizabeth has
Oh
written
yes,
a book on
yeah.
Sylvia Plath. Another, you know, there's certain themes Elizabeth is centering on. So yeah, Christian, thank you. And I can't wait to see what happens with episode 6, Christian. I feel
I
like
can't wait. Oh my goodness. Well, thank you guys so much for being available. Guys, join us back when Ivy Tower Boiler Room rewatches Smash episode 6, season 1. Chemistry. See you guys then.